G'day and welcome back to Disc Golf Down Under. It's Matt here, and recently I've received a couple of messages from people recommending a disc that I should try out. They tell me that it'll give me 20 meters extra, and another person said that they're very consistent. So what did I do? Well, I was intrigued. I went out and I bought 3 online, and they've just arrived. So let's get in and check out the Innova Groove. Yeah, okay, don't worry, don't panic. I didn't go out and buy a heap of grooves. In fact, I didn't buy any grooves. I found my groove many years ago, just when I was starting out playing disc golf, on a disc golf course, out in an open field. There, plain as can see. I picked it up, didn't have a name on it, strangely enough, so I put it in the lost and found, left it there, was there about a month later. Nobody wanted it. Was that a bit of a sign to start with? Well, I thought, well, I'll grab it, I'll take it. And yeah, threw it twice, and as a beginner, didn't really suit me. It was a Speed 13 disc. So it went into the bottom of my disc golf collection in my shed, and I pulled it out recently just to give it a try. If you've played disc golf for more than 12 months, I'm sure you've heard of the infamous or perhaps notorious groove. Maybe you've seen the memes online and the videos of how to throw the groove, you know, the ones where people are throwing it into a rubbish bin or throwing it into a lake or into the bushes. It's got a bit of a bad rap. And is it really as bad as they say? And well, I thought I'd do this review to let you know how it flies. And so you don't have to go through the pain. Spoiler alert, yeah, the pain. So on Infinite Discs, probably the largest website with disc reviews online, the Groove scores an average out of 5 of 3.04, and that's from 89 reviews. And on Infinite Discs website themselves, they rate it as their worst disc. So let's have a look at some specifications of the Groove. So the Groove was launched in 2008 by Innova. It has a diameter of 211 millimeters, pretty standard for disc golf disc. It has a rim width of 24 mils, making it a Speed 13 driver. Has a height of about 17 mils, though I think this one might be a little bit less than that. And a rim depth of 12 millimeters. It comes in weights from 165 to 175 grams, and it's only available in Champion plastic. The flight rating on this is 13, 6, -2, and 2. So some very impressive numbers there. So I wanted to have a look at some of the marketing guff that Innova have put out over the years. So today they say that the Groove features an innovative groove on the underside of the rim, and this channel allows the Speed 13 driver to be molded in lighter weights than our other wide rim high-speed drivers. And back when they launched it in 2008, this is what they said: it is aimed at less powerful throwers as a complement to the Boss, with a straighter flight in a lower weight, and it goes down to 164 grams in Champion plastic. So you have to remember, this is back before Blizzard. The lightweight material that Innova brought out, this was back around, they started playing around with it in 2010, 2011, and they launched it in 2012. So this is pre-Blizzard era, and this is their attempt at producing lightweight discs. So before we go any further, let's jump in and do a flight test. Let's take the Groove outside and throw it. And for comparison, I'm going to be also throwing another disc with the same flight ratings, the Innova Shrike. The Shrike has the same 13, 6, -2, 2 flight ratings. So we'll see how they compare. They should be very similar. And so this is a 173 gram Champion Groove, and this is a 172 gram Star Shrike. And they both have similar amounts of seasoning, and they're worn in. So from looking at the flight ratings, you'd expect the discs to be very similar in flight, but looking at the profiles, immediately I can see that they are very different. Groove is going to be a much more stable disc. Shrike has a bit more of a pop top to it, a bit more of a dome. So let's see. So I'm going to start out by doing some flat throws, and I did have quite a few throws with the Groove before I managed to get one that was behaved relatively well. And this one I really had to crank on. So this, You know, I'm really pulling on this, even had a bit of grip lock to get as much power into it as I can. And you can see it heads out flat, no sign of any turn to the right, and then it fades hard to the end to 97 meters. Compare this with the Shrike, similar throw, not as much power actually, turns over to the right, nice S-curve, and bang, out to 105 meters. So the Shrike, almost an extra 10 meters, and that's with a really hard throw on the groove. Bit of a hyzer release here, slight hyzer, and you can see the groove, it just goes left. 78 meters, no sign of it turning. Shrike on the other hand, bit of hyzer there, flips up the flat, rides nicely, and then bang out to 102 meters. So you can immediately see these discs are very, very different. Just a note too, there's a slight tailwind on this, left to right tailwind. Bit of any now, you can see I've really pulled the groove over. It did hold the any a little bit, but then it's faded back to the left at 87 meters. And the Shrike, put the any on it, runs a nice out, and then just fades out at the end at 100 meters. On to forehands now, and I don't throw forehands very regularly. Bit of nose up on this one, the Shrike goes up and yep, just dies out to the right, 76 meters. The Shrike on the other hand, much more user friendly, and out it goes to 85 meters with a relatively wimpy forehand. You can see immediately that the groove is a real beefcake. It really wants to fade hard to the left or the right if you're throwing a forehand. And the other ugly thing, the thing that I hated about this disc is I threw 3 or 4 forehands with this disc, and my hands were torn up. It was taking layers of skin off with each throw. The rim on it has a very rough edge, and it really feels very uncomfortable and grabs on the hand. And it also, this results in very inaccurate throws. It tends to grab your hand, you tend to grip lock it a lot, or it just doesn't release properly. And it's one of the reasons I hate this disc. It's a typical speed 13 driver, so if you've thrown high speed discs, it's not going to be foreign to you. There is a groove on the underside of the disc that Innover have used. It helps to reduce the weight from the rim. But these days, the disc manufacturers like MVP are going the opposite way. They're putting weight out in the rim for that gyroscopic stability. So I think the groove was a bit of a failed experiment in that area. As I mentioned, there's a rough edge. It's almost like a micro bead on the underside of the rim, and very, very uncomfortable. My disc just didn't behave at all like a 13-6 -2-2. So I jumped online, read through some of the reviews on Infinite Discs, and it seems like this is typical of the groove, that every disc is different. It's like a lucky dip. You grab one and some of them are understable, some of them are beefy, overstable discs. Mine I would rate as yes, it's definitely a speed 13 driver. Doesn't have glide 6, probably closer to a 4. In most cases when I threw it, I'm lucky if I can get it out over 80 meters, it just wants to drop. So glide 4, definitely no turn, 0 turn, so the -2, I don't know where that's come from. And fade, yeah, it's probably about a 2 to a 3. It's got a lot of fade on it. So I found it was very difficult to get a consistent release on the backhands, and the same on the forehands. It was just, the thing doesn't want to come out of your hand cleanly at all. So stick those two together, the flight rating that just doesn't match the tin, and the inconsistent throws and the grip locks and things like that. It's just a terrible disc. The only way I could get any distance out of this disc was, to really crank on it as hard as I could, but then I lost the accuracy, or to really pull on an Anheuser flex shot like Nico does, and then still, it's just not as easy to throw the distance as the Shrike. So apparently the original grooves that came out in 2008, they did have a bit of understability, but something's gone wrong somewhere along the line, and they've all turned into beefcakes since 2013, 2014, somewhere around there. So would you buy this disc? Well, as I said, it's a lucky dip. It's not going to be giving you the flight rating that's on the tin and on the disc, and it just feels terrible. If you like taking layers of skin off your hand, especially if you like to throw forehand, then yeah, this might be the disc for you, but comfort-wise, it's just terrible. So final thoughts. Well, my question is why do Innover continue to make this disc? You've got the Shrike, it's a much better disc. They've got their Blizzard plastics now. Really, I think they only continue it as a bit of a joke. And the consensus online is that it's just impossible to find 2 grooves. You can buy 4 or 5 grooves and they'll all fly differently. And I found a quote online that just sums it up perfectly. So thanks to Bogey No More, I'll read this out. Bogey No More says, "The issue with the groove is not that you can't take one and find a use for it. The issue is that some grooves are overstable, some are flippy, some have glide, some drop like a brick. That's not terribly uncommon, but in most discs that are inconsistent, you can find a tell. The domey ones suck, or the flat ones suck, or the ones with the flatter wing fly less stable, or look at the parting line height. Something gives you a clue as to what the disc is going to fly like to help a player with some experience find one that will fit their needs. The groove doesn't. 2 discs that look identical will fly completely differently. You just have to buy one and hope it's going to fly the way you want it to. Nobody wants to do that. It's that every one is a unique snowflake of suck quality that people hate. And I think that just rounds out the groove perfectly. In my review, yeah, nothing in this disc wants me to recommend it to anybody. Go out and buy the Shrike instead. It's a much better disc. You'll get the distance a lot easier and it flies as advertised. Maybe you could find a use for the groove in a utility role, but there are better discs out there for that. Unfortunately for me, I actually have found a use for my groove. So you may have noticed on some of the shots there's a hole drilled in the top. So I've rigged mine up to use for some strength exercises. So maybe this might be something you can do. If you've got a groove, you might be able to do something similar. Is this the worst disc ever? Well, I haven't thrown every single disc. As I mentioned previously, there's 1,200 different discs out there in the wild. I've probably thrown about 100 of them, so only 10%. But out of the 100 discs that I've thrown, this would have to be one of the worst. And the good news is that there's hard to get in Australia. I looked online, Portal Disc Sports doesn't have any, AusDiscs doesn't have any. If you really want one, if you're really a glutton for punishment, then jump on to Discology and grab the last one available in Australia. So that brings us to the end. I hope you like this review. I've gone through all the pain so that you don't have to. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. Let me know in the comments down below if you agree. Do you agree with my thoughts on the groove, or are you someone who found one of the grooves that just works for you? So thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to Disc Golf Down Under as well. And good luck out there on the golf course.